Well, the first rule of a sports film is that it can't be about sports. It's got to be about a human being.
I think that our success is grounded in emotion. You cannot watch our films and not feel. There's a larger story to be told.
You know how this goes.
We're so excited to be here to have this conversation. This is another documentary in a terrific line of 30 for 30s, and we're celebrating 15 years. When you set out to tell this story, John, give me the first steps once you were like, all right, this is my story.
Well, the first thing I had to do was convince Felipe, because Felipe wasn't really interested.
Which it was easy. It was easy. I already had seen someone who's 30 for 30.
I wanted Felipe to understand that I didn't want to make a film that was just about your basketball career, but about your life experience. I found a film clip, that was actually my great-grandfather who had come over from Europe in the early 1900s, and he sold newspapers on the sidewalk by City Hall in Manhattan. And I wrote a paragraph about my family's immigrant story to the South Bronx, where Felipe's family came when they came. And I showed the picture of my great-grandfather.
And that's when I was sold. I was totally sold. Now, because when John came to me, my whole thing was that if he would have started talking about basketball, I would have said no. Because I didn't want my story to be about basketball. His story was able to uplift so many immigrants in this country that have come to this country and made a better living for their family and their countries.
In storytelling, sort of retroactively, right? I don't know if the word is Marsha, but what does this franchise hope to do for its subjects?
Humanize. And I think what we owe our audience is not only great storytelling, not only education, not only information, but allow people to see individuals as they are. But for people who know nothing or knew nothing about what it meant to be Dominican, you finish that film and you have an idea. You feel we have opened the aperture just a bit. And I think, the what if I told you is you being able to sit down with a family member about to talk about this film, and you would say, what if I told you there was this kid that came from the DR, spoke no English, and by the time he finished high school, he was the #1 recruited athlete in the country, basketball player in the country. What if I told you? So I like to feel that many of our films are like a stealth bomber coming in. You think it's one thing, but then we keep peeling back the layers, and you're like, wait, this is not really a story about basketball. It's a story about a kid who immigrates to America. It's a story about family. It's a story about culture and the Dominican Republic. It's a story about a director who had his own point of view.
You can't tell Felipe's story without basketball. So you have to embrace the sport part too, which is part of the beauty of working with the creative partners that a director has at ESPN, is because they speak sports fluently with you. That's the fabric of Felipe's life, but it's not the fabric of who Felipe is. You embrace the sport even as you don't put it in the foreground.
Right. Felipe, during the interviews for this documentary, healthy release, painful, what were some of the emotions you experienced living it all over again?
For me, it was a mix of joy. The film was able to provide a lot of information that people didn't know. Some of my struggles, I was able to tell people the struggles that I went to, dealing with the pressure, being in New York, and all that. But the most special moment for me was that first time I watched the film, I watched it with my father on his deathbed, and it just made me feel so proud as a son that my father was able to see that all of his struggle and everything that he did for his family was being, showcased in the big screen, and I felt very proud of that moment for myself, for my family.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us, Felipe. That is incredible. Now, Marsha, as iconic as this franchise has become, how many pitches come your way of folks that feel like they've got a 30 for 30 story worth telling?
I think we average somewhere between 10 and 15 per week. So we get a lot of pitches. We have an extraordinary development team. Our leader is somewhere here in this audience, Kati. She and her team go through these pitches meticulously, and we respond and we give feedback. And a lot of the times we say yes, but it takes time.
So it seems that it takes a 30 for 30 some time to marinate, right? Like, and in the process, John, if you care to share, have there been moments where you thought it was one, you dig into the process that Marsha speaks of, and then it's like, maybe we need to give this a little bit more time?
Yeah, I think that's definitely true. I think that, marinate is the right word, but when you're in your prime as an athlete in particular, you don't have any perspective on what you're actually doing. This sort of follow doc, a season with, and that's a great genre, but 30 for 30 from the beginning was not interested in that. These stories have perspective.
But for most of our stories, they're not trends. They're not what's happening now. We want to tell stories that stand the test of time. That's why you could go back to our library right now, and I encourage all of you, if you've not seen The Dominican Dream, it can be found on ESPN Plus.
Yes.
The library, the entire
good.
library. But it's because they're almost evergreen. They're stories that you can look back 20 years from now and say, yeah, the more things change, the more they stay the same. But I think that what we do best is we educate our audience through great narrative storytelling, and that's not ever going to change. So we started with the best, and we continue on.
Thank you, Marsha.
John, Felipe, Marsha, thank you guys so much, and thank you guys for listening.